Hello, my loves. Let's do this thing called an episode of my podcast. I can't hear myself on my mic, but that's okay because it's Mercury Retrograde. Ooh, on the subject of things I haven't done or aren't aligning, this is the only episode I did this month. It's freaking December 31st, which I feel like the last day of the year is the ultimate procrastination moment. I did one of those things this month that I keep sharing with you all that I won't do. I freed up a bunch of space for myself and I got really excited. And I was like, wow, look at all this space I have. Let me fill it back up with things I don't need so then I can be overwhelmed and bogged down. That was fun. Great idea to do that in December, holidays, end of the year. Yeah, not good for business, not good for the psyche, if you will. But I'm on the other side of it and I'm not doing it again. I'm not. There's some other things we're not doing again in 2023. But before we can really talk about 2023, let's talk about 2022.
Danielle, Mercury, it's time for the show. Danielle, welcome to the show. Danielle, Mercury, it's welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, okay. 2022 is wrapping up. And we are moving into 2023. Maybe you're listening to this in the future. Maybe you're listening to this next year. Got to insert a dad joke when I can. But this is really relevant for the beginning of January. So don't feel like you're missing out because you didn't listen to it on the last day of the year. Anyway, okay. This is what we're going to unpack. We're going to talk about the energy of 2022 and specifically how you don't need to be so hard on yourself for what you feel like you didn't accomplish this past year. This year was not about accomplishment in the masculine way. It wasn't about producing a bunch of material, a bunch of work, a bunch of resources. It was about accomplishing something from within, something from the depths of your own self. This was not about working hard for the world, yet working hard for yourself, which honestly is a lot more difficult in ways. As much as we don't want to be completely at the mercy of the world, that we don't want to be overworked and burnt out and doing something we don't love, when we take the reins and we go within, we say, oh, I'm working on myself now. This is going to be good. This is going to be juicy. This is going to be fun. And then you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Where am I? How did I get here? I didn't even know this was inside of me. Help. This is hard. This doesn't feel good. This is difficult. This isn't what, they sold me in the pamphlet when they were talking about how fun and love and light the age of spirituality is. Where am I? What's going on? I kind of want to go back to work. I kind of want to go back to that dead end job. I kind of want to go back to the things that I thought were work, but actually this is the work. Ooh, that was a lot of 2022. 2022 was, are you willing to work on yourself? Are you willing to go to the places that might sting, that might not feel so great, where you might have to reconcile and forgive, and where you also might have to kind of come to terms with some things that you did that don't feel so great? Like, I don't know about you, but I definitely effed up a lot this past year. I stumbled more than I have in a really long time. I got caught up in myself. I got caught up in judgment. I got caught up in how I wanted to show up. I got caught up in what people think of me. I got caught up in my own needs. I got caught up in old addictive patterns. And it was not fun. It didn't feel fluid. It didn't feel sexy. It didn't feel abundant. It felt choppy. It felt lonely. It felt all over the place. It felt dark. I felt old depressive episodes come through. And yet, I didn't give up. I stayed in that process because I knew that in order to progress, I have to honor the process. And if nothing changes, guess what? Nothing changes. And I found myself, and maybe you feel this way too, at the beginning of 2022, in this really interesting space of knowing that I was expanding into more, knowing that my life was elevating and changing and progressing. And in order for it to really seamlessly fall into place, the 12 months that we just had to happen. They were necessary in order for me to then step into the momentum and the fullness and the expectations of 2023. We can't just jump into the next chapter of our lives and expect to be full throttle, expect it to be this thing that just works automatically. I think sometimes there's this notion with manifesting and the law of attraction that you're just jumping into the next best thing after the next best thing after the next best thing, and you're just going to be fully, automatically, organically ready for it. And that's not always the case. Oftentimes the case is that the readiness that is required to move into that thing that you're manifesting, to move into all the juicy, sexy things on your vision board, is to have the regulation and the understanding and the threshold and the bandwidth to be able to hold space for it. That is the key. It's not about doing. I got to hustle. I got to do this. I got to do that. It's how can I regulate and allow my being to be in a place where I can hold space for the greatness that is transpiring. Major. However, if you are still bashing yourself, if you're still your own worst enemy, if you're still holding on to old grudges, that does not really create the container or the structure for the way that you can hold space for momentum forward. And so 2022, we have to, as we end it, we have to also end regrets, lay them to rest. Stop beating yourself up for what you could have done better. You didn't know any better. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And if that's the case, you did the best that you could, and you were up for the journey. You were up for the exploration. How cool is that? That's what this whole life is about. This life, you came here as an explorer. You didn't come here automatically as the know-it-all. You didn't come here as the one that was just going to have everything handed to them. You did come here with resources. I do believe that we are abundant from the space of we always will be taken care of. Everything we need is always available to us. And we wouldn't be given the breath. We wouldn't be given the body. We wouldn't be given opportunity. So I believe in that. But I also believe that part of that is also the exploration piece. Are you willing to explore this life? Because that's what your soul signed up for. Your soul wasn't like, you know what, I'll just come here and have everything taken care of. That's where you came from. When you were chilling up in the cosmos and just flying around the stars, having a good old time with your soul family, you were taken care of up there. Everything was established. Everything was taken care of. And then you're like, you know what? I've been really pampered up here in the galaxy, in the Milky Way. I want to go be on a planet for a little bit. I want to go be a human being for a while. I want to, explore this earth, and I want to explore human emotions, and I want to relate to other people, and I want to move through different themes because you know what? I have a feeling it's going to give my soul a lot. It's going to really fill me up. It's going to really benefit me. And it's going to make it that much more satisfying when the point comes when I'm done with the exploration within this lifetime, and I decide, okay, let's take that last breath and go back up to the cosmos again. You're going to be that much more nourished, that much more satisfied, that much more complete. So I want you to remember that when you're like, why am I here? What's the point? I hate it. I want to go back home, right? Sometimes I have that notion when I'm in that kind of dark funk. I'm like, I want to go back home. I want to go back home because I want to go back up where it was easy. But that's not the point. The point is I wanted to be here. And I need to honor that too. And I want to honor that. I want to be here. And whenever I have those depressive episodes, it's just a reminder of the fact that I did choose to be here. And in these moments of darkness, can I have compassion for myself? Can I be gentle with myself? Can I soothe myself? Can I soothe the wonderment of why am I here? Did I make a bad call? Am I doing it all wrong? And just recognize that I came here to experience everything. And if I came here to experience everything, I have to feel everything. And sometimes that also means having to feel the depths of the darkness. And yet, when you sit with that darkness long enough, it becomes comforting. It becomes soothing. Your eyes start to change and you almost can start to see in the dark. You ever have that experience where something is pitch black and you're just sitting in it? Not that I recommend you just or assume that you just sit around in pitch black rooms all the time. However, if you were to sit in a pitch black room, if you were to go in your bathroom, maybe there's no windows in there, and just sit in there. If you sat there long enough, eventually your eyes would start to make out things. Okay? It would start to establish outlines. You'd start to understand where things were. You'd start to be able to move your way around. Again, I don't recommend living that way, but if you had to, eventually, even that dark room would become more known, would become more comfortable, and you would get a new set of eyes to navigate that dark room. And then it gets better and better and better. And then eventually you're like, wait, I'm going to leave. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to turn on a light. Someone's going to let me out, and then that's what happens. And that's kind of another way to look at the healing journey. But you have to remember that, especially with the end of the year, we start to get worried about time, how much time we have left, how much time we might have wasted. And I want you to realize that if all you did this year was rest, go within, get clear on what it is that you want, befriend yourself, wake up every day, then you didn't waste any time at all, my friend. If anything, you utilized it. Okay? Every slice of now is an experience, is something worth exploring, is on purpose. So don't sit there and think, oh, I'm wasting my life. I didn't do anything. I didn't get any of my 2022 goals. I actually didn't have any goals for 2022. I think I might have had a goal that I wanted a boyfriend, and I got to experience on my Venus line how not to have a boyfriend, but I needed that. I needed that, we're not going to get into astrocartography too much, but astrocartography is amazing. I call it astro mapping because it gets you set up in a space where you can see your chemistry with the ley lines of the world and understand how you can, again, explore, experience, partake in this human journey. And so for me, where I currently live in Greenville, I live on my Venus line. And I was like, amazing. It's so good. I'm so magnetic. I'm so beautiful here. I love just being a Venetian here, right? Now it's going to be so easy when I date. But what happened was, as soon as I found someone that I liked, I entered into the shadow side of the Venus line. And the shadow sign was like, here are all the ways that you don't know what you're doing. And that was fine because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And sometimes you can't see wounds or things that you're holding on to or old patterns until you're experiencing something that brings them out. And so often relationships will do that. So often being in front of someone that you're attracted to, that you find amusing, that you find kind, that you find interesting, that you find sexy, all of a sudden bring up all this stuff that counters it or counters the way that you want to show up for it. And it's important to see that. It's important to witness that because, again, you're exploring. And if you're exploring, you get to explore, ooh, why did I act that way when this person did this? Why did I say this when I really meant this? Why did I feel like this person was judging me? Where is all of this coming from? And then it comes up for reflection. And it can be painful because you can, at least in my experience, I recognize, and I'm not beating myself up at all. I have no regrets around how I navigated it. And I very much trust the process. And I had something came through last night. I was at Delta 8 guppies. They're so fun. I had a really cool little mantra. Okay, this is a little side story. So I like took a Delta 8 gummy. They're so fun. And I was having a lot of downloads, and just I like to, whenever I utilize cannabis, I like to depart my body. I imagine this is a little bit like ketamine, but I've never done ketamine, so I'm not sure. But I like to kind of depart my body a little bit and just view myself as the observer, the non-judgmental party viewing Danielle. So I was doing that a little bit last night, and I had this really cool little mantra that came through around relationships or things that you felt like, oh, that didn't work out, maybe it was supposed to, or maybe if I did this differently, right? And I was kind of going back and forth in my head around it all, like, well, what if I had shown up this way, or what if I had said this thing, right? But it doesn't matter, because the outcome is still the outcome, and all I can do is accept what I gained out of it, and accept the lesson, and accept that it's going to go however it's meant to go from here on out. And then I said something so profound, but this is what I did. And it shows that it worked. And then I said, I don't have to remember what I just said. Because like sometimes I do this thing, and why I don't always love mantras and affirmations. I'm an overthinker. My Mercury placement is in Virgo, and I have a tendency to overthink, ruminate, and really fixate on things. And so sometimes even with mantras or affirmations, I find that I replay them over and over, and they kind of become this obsessive loop in my head. And whatever it is that I said about relationship and love for this upcoming year, and how I wanted to show up for it, and how I wanted to trust the process, I knew in that moment that I didn't want to ruminate in it, and I didn't want it to turn whatever it was that I said into an obsession. So I literally said, I release this, and I don't need to repeat it ever again. I trust it that much. And I literally have no idea what I said. Oh, that's so juicy though, right? Like like at the same time though, how beautiful that I could give away something that felt really profound and not need to hold on to it or obsess over it. And that's with anything in our life, right? Relationship, jobs, money, our health, just be in it. Okay. I don't know where I'm going with all this, but I do know where I'm going with all this because you're still listening. Okay. So those were just some musings of 2022. The biggest thing that I want you to get from this first 15 minutes of talking is, don't be so hard on yourself if you feel like you didn't accomplish what you thought you were going to accomplish. If anything, you probably accomplished so much more by not accomplishing those things, and you can accomplish those things in 2023. Okay? The things that you're perceiving as quote unquote losses in the framework of society are actually wins, because those quote unquote losses are what are going to allow you to be in the gains, the wins, if you will, of 2023 from a more outer perspective. Okay, 2022 was inner. It was an innie year, okay? If the universe was a belly button, it would be the kind with the innie, the inner belly button, okay? Don't beat yourself up. Be proud of yourself. You made it through 2022. It was not a smooth year. It was not an easy year. Anyone that has talked to me in the last 12 months or even the last 13 months, I said, hey, 2020 is going to have a slow flow. How do you feel about that? And some people resisted it. I'm curious where you stand now, my resistors. And other people said, I'm going to ride the wave. I'm curious to see where you are now too. But we're still technically all in the same point, in the same place, in the same moment, moving into 2023. So 2023 is an outie belly button year. Okay, the universe is boop, it's poking its little belly button out. And 2023 is, and for anyone that wants to know more about the transits and wants to go really into the nitty gritty of the astrology of 2023, I encourage you to get my astrology planner. I'll put a link on the show. And in addition to getting the planner, it's a digital guide. I'm also hosting a workshop on January 9th, 2023, and we will go into the nitty gritty, juicy, celestial logistics of the year. But that being said, right now we're currently in a Mercury retrograde. Okay, the Mercury retrograde started on December 29th. It will go direct on January 19th. The retrograde is in Capricorn. Okay, so we're in the same sun sign as the Mercury retrograde. We're still wrapping up Mars retrograde. Okay, Mars has been retrograding since freaking Halloween, and it will go direct, I want to say the 12th of January. So with these retrograde energies of Mars and Mercury, which is our inertia and our mind, no one's saying you got to hit the gates running on January 1st. I never say that. I think it's kind of silly to feel like you have to have it all figured out the first day of the year. You probably won't have it all figured out until the last day of the year, if we're being honest. I mean, think about how much more you got figured out about 2022 at the aftermath of it. So don't feel like you have to have it all figured out. Don't feel like you have to do a bunch of things to get going. If anything, I don't really want you, quote unquote, starting your new year until more mid-January, late January, mainly when we start to hit Aquarius season around January 21st. February, all planets will be direct. Okay, that's nice and juicy. Pluto's making moves out of Capricorn into Aquarius as well for the first time in like hundreds of years. Okay, there's a lot of stuff moving and shaking. It's a 7-year. 7 in Tarot is the Chariot. Let's go. Let's get started. But like, in order for the Chariot to move forward, you got to first just get into the Chariot. And sometimes that takes a lot of time. I went bull riding in Charleston a few weeks ago, and the hardest part wasn't staying on, was getting on. Oh my God, it took me so long to get on the freaking bull, and the way that like they do it, like no one can help you. So you have to do it yourself. And yeah, it took a few tries to get on the freaking thing, but then I was on it, and I think I lasted 21 seconds, and probably longer than some of my past love conquests. So that was appeasing. So I rode the bull, and then I fell off, right? But the Chariot, you got to get on. You got to make sure you have the right horses or the right people in place to move that Chariot forward. And but that's the key word, forward. 2023 is about forward momentum. It's a little bit more action oriented. It's a little bit more masculine. It's a little bit more about things falling into place. In Chinese zodiac, when we had the lunar new year at the end of January, it'll be the year of the rabbit. And the rabbit is about luck, right? Remember those lucky rabbit's foots? I never wanted one. I thought it was weird and morbid. I was like, why are your keys attached to a rabbit's foot? Is that rabbit still alive? Does it have did you replace it with a little amputee rabbit foot? I never really got that. But that being said, I like the idea of luck, right? When you go to the casino and it's like 3 7s, that's like a big deal. 7 means like you're on to something. You're on to something. You're being rewarded, okay? 2023 is the reward for you not pushing and forcing in 2022. For you finally saying, I'm not going to take these regrets that I have, this coulda, woulda, shoulda energy into the new year with me. It's going to be the return on the healing, the return on everything that you witnessed and experienced in 2022. It's the next phase of the exploration. It should feel more spacious as well. My hope is that through 2022, you were able to open up and release. A lot of the transits were asking you to clear your plate, okay? Especially this Mercury retrograde that we're in right now. And I love a good Mercury retrograde with the new year because it's like, we don't have to hit the gates running, okay? We can just hang out in our little Chariot behind the gates and get all geared up and make sure that we have everything that we need. Think about before you go on a road trip or you get in the car to go somewhere. Okay, I got my coffee, I got my water, I got my snacks, I got a full tank of gas. Who's in the back seat? Is everything packed up? Do I have everything that I need? Do I have my wallet, my charger, my umbrella, right? You're just getting everything set and ready to go and you're excited, This Mercury retrograde, though, is, yes, be mindful of technology, of course, and all of that. Mercury governs communication. So we want to be mindful of how much we're exuding out in that way. However, the real key to this current Mercury retrograde that's happening in Capricorn is releasing the regrets, releasing any parts of you that you might have picked up along the way that just aren't very favorable, or aren't really something that you would even befriend. Sometimes I look at versions of myself that kind of pop up when I'm stressed or when I'm being challenged. And I'm like, ooh, I don't really like that version of Danielle. I don't really like that projection of how she's showing up. And it's not in a judgment way. It's just like, look, being honest, I wouldn't really hang out with this version. She's kind of uptight, kind of moody, not fun, a little snippy. Not really a fan, but why is she coming up, right? Why is that version of Danielle coming up? What is she afraid of? What is she scared of? What is she trying to control? And that's usually a good key for me. When I get like real rigid and uptight and like not funny, I'm controlling something. And when I control something, I get really boxed in and I'm not really the best version of me. And again, I don't say that in judgment. I'm saying it in observation and acknowledgement. I like a version of me that is in a pleasurable, free-flowing, trusting vibe. I'm a lot more, I don't know, just vibey when I'm laid back, So anyway, I share this because with this Mercury retrograde, it's an opportunity to see what's still on your plate that's not lighting you up, that's not nourishing you. Okay? Do you have so much on your plate that there's not room for anything else? Are there so many things on your plate that you've been eating day in and day out that you're kind of tired of, that don't really light you up, that you're not that excited about? That like if someone were to, if you were sitting at a restaurant and they were to put this plate in front of you, would you be so excited that you came to this restaurant? And you'd be like, oh, this restaurant's serving this too? I thought I was going to be getting something different. Let yourself go to a new restaurant. Let yourself literally take everything off the plate. Take it all off the plate, even some of the things that you like. Take it all off the plate and then fill it back up again, but fill it back up in a way that you still have half the plate empty. I want you going into 2023 with half your plate empty. And that can feel awkward. That can feel uncomfortable. But what that's going to do, it's going to give you space. It's going to give you room. It's going to allow you to use your discernment. It's going to allow you to delegate. It's going to allow you to move into 2023 without feeling so bogged down. And I hope that this past year gave you the clarity and the insight of what on your plate isn't exciting anymore, isn't yummy, isn't nourishing you, isn't growing you, isn't fulfilling you. What has gone stale, what needs to be thrown out, what are your taste buds not into anymore, so that you can feel more on point with where you're going and welcome in new stuff. Because again, we're the explorer. It's really hard to explore when you have a full plate. Really hard to do. So how can you allow yourself to be more of the explorer? Remember, if nothing changes, nothing changes. How about that? And everything changes a little. I mean, I guess there's some of us out there that have the same routine every single day, but they're probably not the ones listening to this. You're probably listening because you're like, ooh, I like change, Danielle. I want to grow. I want to explore. And even like for example, coffee is one of these things that I have every single day. But even my coffee journey has changed over the years. The kind of beans that I like, what I put in my coffee, how I prepare it. But the standalone is that I still love coffee and that's never going anywhere. Ever. Ever. I have a deal with the universe. Coffee is my forever. Anyway, I say that because even some of the things that we still do day in and day out change. Even like brushing your teeth. Do you still use the same exact toothpaste that you used since you started brushing your teeth? You probably have tried other ones out, right? So it's like the routine stays, but you're changing up the routine a little bit more because that's just who we are. It's how we adapt. It's how we move forward. So I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to be in this energy of, I was spending 2022 in that 6 healing, any belly button energy. And now I'm moving into that 7 momentum, acceleration, on the right track, yet pacing myself. Also, I think, 2022 was really big for welcoming and support, self-care, learning new ways to identify, healing, trauma. I mean, I will say, as much as there's it can feel like an overload of information on the internet, it's also given us access to healing in a way like we've never had before. Never have we had so much understanding and awareness of our healing as we have had, and especially in 2022. And so now 2023 is continuing with that healing, continuing with the support, but bringing in accountability, actually really, truly making things happen, moving things forward. And it's going to take some accountability. It's going to take a little trial and error, but you're going to have the momentum and the inertia and the bandwidth to be able to do that. I think a lot of times things fail, not because they weren't meant to work out, but because we didn't have the bandwidth or the energy for it, because things usually don't happen the first time. It takes a little bit to try different things out. Takes a little bit to understand the right way forward. And if you don't have the energy, if you're already burnt out, if you already have too much on your plate, it's hard to start something new because you're not giving yourself the space and the permission to try different things out and to understand that you might not get it the first time. But if you have the right support, if you have the right accountability, if you're willing to give it a few tries, then you will master it. And it will become integrated, and it will be part of how you move things forward. Think about anything you've tried for the first time, whether it be driving a car, making a new recipe, starting a new job. Okay, at first you didn't know much. Even though you knew you wanted to drive. You knew you wanted to eat that cookie that you were going to bake. You knew you wanted to work that job. Even though you wanted it, and even though you knew you'd be good at it, even though you knew it would benefit you, even though you knew it would be tasty, that didn't mean that you were going to get it right 100% the very first try. So that's kind of what 2023 is. Are you willing to be in the driver's seat and try out different routes? And are you going to energize and fuel yourself in a way that will allow for that? Important. Another way that we can kind of see into the future is to go back in the past. So one of the things that I was doing on my cute little Delta 8 gummy adventure last night was look back at the last time there was a 6 year. Okay, so we say that 2022 is a 6 year because 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. Okay, so the last time that we had that was 2023. 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 3 is 6. I looked back at my life in 2023, and I looked kind of a little bit at the snapshot of the year prior, which was 2012. Okay, so 2012 was a 5 year. 2012 was significant because it was the dawning of the Aquarian age. Cool. 2012 for me was also a year that I moved out of Philly, which I never thought I was going to leave Philly, and I moved to New York City. Moving to New York City was a huge catalyst in my career, in my life, and my well-being. It was meant to happen. 2023 was or 2013. So tricky to say the teen years now that we've been in the 20s, right? So 2013, I always want to be like 2013. 2013 was adjusting to living in New York City. I met a significant relationship person in my life at a particular place, Miami, Venus sign. And I really was trying to get out of my corporate job. And so there was a lot of things going on in that 6 year that really were more about the inner and really about seeing things that I needed to see, having to live in a new city, having to navigate, how do I leave my corporate job to do this work full time, navigating, meeting someone that I really liked with relationship and feeling like I was effing it up the whole time. There were a lot of perceived outer losses, leaving my full-time job only to recognize that I couldn't make it work as a coach and needing to get another full-time job. All that happened in 2023 or 2013. I'm going to get it right one of these days. However, after I made it through 2013, I still remember that December. Okay, you want to hear a little story? Let's story time. Okay, so New Year's Eve 2013. Hopefully I'm doing these years right and you're following me. 2013, New Year's Eve, I had a new job as an executive assistant. I was 30 years old, so entering a new decade. And I was exploring more aspects of my spirituality, more things to help me heal. And one of the things I discovered was past life regression. What? I thought it was so cool, so fun. Saw Brian Weiss, who wrote Many Lives, Many Masters. Went to a couple workshops in the city. Was really into it. And I found, or I heard, that if you go on a parsley cleanse, you literally just drink boiled parsley water for 3 days, it will make your journey is a lot more heightened. Well, of course it would. I was literally starving myself for 3 days. So after fasting on parsley water for 3 days, I did a couple past life journeys. They were fun. They were good. But I think I was also just a little delirious from my cleanse. And then I was meeting the dude, the dude that I met earlier that year in March that I had been very on again, off again with, and not knowing what I was doing and stumbling around. We were going to spend New Year's Eve together. Yay. And I was going to go down to Washington, D.C., take the train, and we were going to have this magical New Year's Eve. One thing that I also recognize with relationships, I had a tendency to play in fantasy land. Because I grew up a hopeless romantic, because I watched a lot of movies and TVs that made it seem like it needed to be full of drama and it really needed to be toxic and the man really needed to be avoidant, because those were the things that would eventually allow the man to come your way and for everything to work out and for it to all fall in place and all the magic to occur. I very much lived in that fantasy cinematic thinking of, oh, it's supposed to be dramaful. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be painful. He's supposed to be not available because there's going to be that twist, that turn where they come around and they come back to me. And not that that couldn't happen, but in my experience, that's not how relationships are birthed in this reality. So I was very much, though, in that old cinematic thinking of relationships and fantasy. So anyway, so excited, had all these ideas in my head of how it was going to go. And get there, see the dude, whatever. We go out to eat. Because I had just had parsley water for 3 days, I had like a margarita and like salmon tacos or something. Not enough food. It was hard to eat, to be honest, because my body was like, what's this? That margarita I was pretty gone just from that one. And then I continued to get blackout drunk. Continue. Oh my God. Have you ever seen my stand-up comedy? It's from this. Okay. So I do remember glimpses of the night when we were like having sex. And there was this moment where I was just like so out of it. And I like was on top of him. I was looking at him and I was like, I am infusing you with the love and the light of the universe. Oh my God, my friends. I have never seen such terror in someone's eyes as I had in that moment. It was wild and ridiculous. So anyway, that morning I was so hungover, probably some of the most hungover I've ever been in my life. Definitely up there. I was feeling defeated. I could tell that he wasn't really that interested in continuing the next year with me, 2014 at that time. And I knew deep down it was over. It was over with him. It was over with this chaser energy. I was over me romanticizing this idea of him being my twin flame. I was done with all of it. And further, I was done with working a job that I wasn't crazy about and not finding a way to make it work, not being afraid to show up and say, this is what I have to do. And I want to be in service and I want to help people. And I want to make good money to be able to support myself in the process. And 2014, that was a 7-year. I committed to that. And what happened? Not only did that relationship fade out, I met Gabby Bernstein, who at the time was probably one of my greatest relationships I ever could have manifested. I found Kundalini yoga. I did my teacher training. And eventually, that following year, I left my corporate job and I left it for good. 2014 set me up in a way where I was able to use the momentum, where I was able to really get clear on how I wanted to move things forward and meet the right people to help me to do that. But 2013 needed to be messy because I needed to see how it was all falling apart and I needed to let it so I could rebuild in 2014 and then continue on from there. So my understanding now of when I look at 2022, same thing, moved the year prior from Philly. I found my way back to Philly. Once again, thought, I'm never going to leave Philly this time. Once again, leave Philly, come to Greenville, adjusting to a new town. Wind up meeting somebody very similar to the person from 2013, going through all this relationship inner conflict again, navigating my career and where it's at and feeling like I was reaching a dead end, where it was reaching its end point. Just all this stuff was coming up that was very similar to 2013. And so here I am at the end of 2022, realizing that by viewing it from the lens, from the alignment of 2013, I can also look at 2023 from the lens of 2014. And I can see the advancement and how key 2014 was in my life from an outer perspective. And I can play into that from my 2023. So I encourage you to do that as well. Look at 2013, see how it meshed up with your 2022, and then look at your 2014 and see how that could maybe help you reach deeper alignment in 2023. Some things to think about as we pivot, as you continue to explore and evolve. One thing that I will say for 2023, the world and the way that things come to be and the way that things come together and how you manifest will be a side effect from the healing that you did in 2022. And if at any point you're like, Danielle, I don't think I healed enough in 2022. No. Don't worry about that. You did good. You made it to here. And now 2023 will be a side effect of what happened in 2022. And you're going to recognize that you have more energy, that you have more inertia, that nothing was going to change if nothing changed, that you can't beat yourself up because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And 2023 is about getting a return on that, getting a return on everything that you went through, all the different ways that you showed up, all of the perceived losses when you were in the darkness, to then see the light of what they transformed into in this upcoming year. The ability to say, I'm not going into the new year with a plate that is already too full, but clean up, clear out, and be open to trying out new things. That's the best thing I can tell you for this upcoming year. Let yourself ride the momentum. Let yourself play. Let yourself be curious. Let yourself try things out. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be so hard on yourself. You didn't waste any time. If anything, you probably gain time. I don't think we realize that when we heal, we're gaining time. Okay? You're like, oh, all I did was sit around and heal. Great. You know how much time you gained because of that, as opposed to the alternative? All I did was burn myself out constantly. There's no benefit from burning yourself out. There's no benefit from being too busy. Okay, you don't gain time that way. But if you want to rest and heal and be in the sacred in-between of who you were and where you're going, that, my friend, is a huge investment in gaining time in your life and in this world and in this lifespan. Food for thought. Speaking of food, I'm going to go make some lunch because I'm hungry. But I love you. Thank you for listening this past year. I wish that there had been more episodes. However, I also understand that this was part of my journey and part of how I needed to show up for this past year for myself, and that it had to be a little bit more inward. It had to be a little bit more reflective. It had to be a little bit more selfish so that I can be a little bit more in service, selfless, and open and available for you in 2023, which I'm very much looking forward to. So I love you. Be well, be safe, and I'll see you or talk to you in the new year.